Good evening and welcome to God Talk. My name is Ray. For those who are part of the Facebook group, I've shifted the teaching series over to Monday nights, as I'm now speaking every Sunday for a fellowship gathering in Attercliffe, and it gives me a little time to put together each episode. Tonight we will continue our theme of Matthew 7. I believe this whole chapter is connected, and I don't think you can get the true meaning of each segment until you read it that way. Remember, in our last episode, Jesus warns us not to judge by the law, for we would be just as guilty. Instead, he encourages us first to examine ourselves and then gently help guide our brother should he be veering somewhat off the path. But we are to do this for his redemption and restoration only, never to condemn, and always gently in love. The scripture for tonight, Matthew 7, verse 6, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to the pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." Now, in this next part, it seems to take a heated turn as Jesus warns us not to give anything sacred to the dogs or cast pearls among the pigs. Well, who are the dogs and who are the pigs? We will find out in 2 seconds. Who are the dogs and who are the pigs? You know, in our culture, it seems to be quite an insult Jesus is dishing out, but he is comparing the behavior of these two groups of people to that of dogs and pigs. The analogy may at first seem a little harsh, but considering the seriousness of rejecting the gospel of truth, it seems fitting to describe them in this manner. To me, they are two different groups of people. They're similar in that they both do not really care about you or what you have to offer, but are only there to use you or destroy you. Now, I'm not saying that this passage in no way speaks to us in our culture, because it does. But again, we need to remember the original audience at this time was Pharisees, teachers of the law, and Jewish people who knew only the law. Now let's first have a look at those he likens to dogs. The word for dog in the Greek can also mean someone with an impudent mind, one who has little respect for anyone. So this is someone who is basically just out to get you. They're always looking for a way to discredit you, to usurp you, and they will not stop until you're either out of the picture or entirely dominated by them. Like dogs, they usually travel in packs and rarely work alone. They strategize ways of taking you down by spreading rumors and gossip and getting others on their side against you. These are people who usually have control issues, and Jesus warns us not to trust them with anything sacred. They're not interested in anything of value you have to say. They have an agenda to dominate or destroy, and they're blind to anything else. Here I believe Jesus at the time was speaking or referring to the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. They would always ask questions pretending to be interested in learning about what he had to teach, but the whole time it was to trap him and use it against him. Have you ever had someone like that in your life? Especially someone with whom you tried to share the gospel. Not easy, is it? They may ask you a question that seems like they're really interested in your answer, but instead they use it against you to try and make you look or sound stupid, and it's usually in front of others. Now, Jesus is not saying that we shouldn't talk to these people, but I believe he is telling us not to waste our time getting into long spiritual debates with them. Best to just be who we are and witness with our life than try to win them over with words. Paul has a few quotes to help support this. One is 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. "The person without the Spirit does not accept things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness, and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit." Now, I wouldn't say Paul is necessarily talking about dogs here, but he is saying that if you're trying to relate something spiritual to someone, unless the Spirit has opened their eyes and ears, they will not be able to understand. Instead, they will consider it complete foolishness. Now add the agenda for them to want to shut you down and discredit you, and you may find yourself in a war. Your time could have been better spent elsewhere. When I get asked a question by a non-believer about spiritual matters, before I answer, I usually ask them one of two questions. That way I can determine their motives and know if this is going to be a healthy conversation or an argument that goes absolutely nowhere. I first ask them, do you believe in a spiritual world? Or that there may be a possibility of a spiritual world? If they answer yes, then I know they're at least open-minded about the answers I'm about to give. If the answer is no, then I may reason with them a little by asking them, how can they be sure one doesn't exist? But basically, the conversation will not go much further. The second question I ask, which is advised by apologist Frank Turek, if you agreed that the evidence was substantial, that Christianity was true, would you become a Christian? Why or why not? If they answer yes, then I would provide them with a little bit of information that I wanted them to research. If they do the work, then I know they're truly interested. If they answer no, it usually means they do not want to let something go, or there are consequences for their conversion. All that will give you a better idea of what the next step should be. What about the swine or the pigs? Well, to me, the swine are similar in a way that they also have an agenda and really don't care about you, but are the type of people I call takers. They are people that will be there as long as you have something to offer them. They have an insatiable appetite for worldly things and are never satisfied. In all seriousness, they couldn't care less for you or anything of the true value you had to offer, as long as you're giving them what they want, which could be even just a social status. They'll stick around. They are also completely blind and reject wisdom and truth in lieu of their worldly agendas, like a pig would reject pearls. See, to a pig, pearls are worthless because they're not food and they can't be ingested. The pig will only trample over them, looking for a way to fill their bellies, even if it's scraps of garbage. There's no way to reason with them, as they do not have the ability to reason. In John chapter 6, after Jesus feeds the 5,000, he deals with a few of these kind of people. It says, when they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And Jesus answered, very truly, I tell you, you're not looking for me because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. These people were only around for what they could get. They had no interest whatsoever in what Jesus was truly offering. So for us today, I want you to also look at this scripture in this way. When Jesus says, do not give what is sacred to the dogs or throw your pearls to the pigs, read it as if it is saying, do not give up what is sacred to the dogs, and do not throw away your pearls to the pigs. Now, this brings in a little deeper meaning to how we should respond should we find ourselves in confrontation with these groups of people. Anything that is sacred is worth value, a value equal to what Christ gave up for you. In other passages, he likens pearls to the kingdom of heaven. So in both instances, he's referring to something that has valuable kingdom qualities. Now, the fruits of the Spirit, as Paul talks about in Galatians 5:22-23, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control are, in fact, kingdom qualities. They are not fruits of the flesh. The fruits of the flesh or the world are listed before this verse in verse 19. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. What I also believe that Jesus is saying here is when these people confront us, we are not to forsake our gifts of the Spirit for acts of the flesh. In other words, we're to remain holy. We're not to come down to their level. We're not to give away our love for hate, our peace for discord, our gentleness and self-control for jealousy or fits of rage. That is feeding our selfish ambition, which is the fruit of the flesh. I can't tell you how embarrassed I get when I see a supposed believer on social media telling a non-believer that they hope they go to hell because they've gotten into some kind of difference of opinion or debate. That shouldn't be. That is taking the name of Christ in vain. Now, this is what I believe Jesus is referring to when he says, lest they tear you to pieces. You see, they now have good ground to come after you as a poor example of why your faith doesn't work. In this circumstance, you have shown yourself to be of no difference in character than they. Now, I know we all mess up. God is faithful to forgive us when we ask him. But it doesn't mean there won't be relational consequences for our actions. We need to be careful that when dealing with those Jesus refers to as dogs or pigs, that we don't become like them. Best not to say anything at all than to allow our flesh to have the upper hand, especially when trying to reach someone with the gospel. Well, so far from the beginning of Matthew, we have a lot of what not to do's, but not much instruction on what to do or how to do it. And that brings us to the next section. Ask, and it will be given to you. And we'll talk about that next Monday. Until then, have a blessed week.